Thank you very much, Robin, and thank you very much for that keynote address. I found so many interesting points that I will try to address in my own presentation because you really did scope the challenges and the opportunities that we have to enhance the customer experience. And the reason that we have those challenges heightened right now, I think, is because of the COVID-19 situation. And it's kind of accelerated the conversations that we've been thinking about and postulating and wondering what the value of, and now we're kind of forced into taking action. So I think that kind of sets the table for today's discussion about really how we have to make a much more dynamic customer experience. So if you go on to the how we got here, it starts with how we're going to go forward financially. Even before COVID-19, as I said, there was a lot of interest in not only AI, as Robin mentioned, but in intelligent automation. So Blue Prism is an RPA vendor, robotics process automation. It's a term we don't use about ourselves much, even though we coined the phrase. We prefer the term intelligent automation and the concept of digital workers. And that is creating a platform that can have enough intelligence in it to engage applications, data structures. Intelligent automation can also engage AI services. It can have human in the loop. It can have any sort of dynamic set of exception paths to accomplish work. It's such an important capability going forward to allow scale, to provide consistency and auditability, that KPMG sees that within the next 5 years, it's going to be over a $230 billion market. And if you look at the investments, the adjacent investments in AI, you really can commercialize the value of AI with intelligent automation. How can you make sure that you're getting the information extracted, transformed, and loaded for AI services? Digital workers can help with that. How can you take the actions necessary to commercialize the insights from AI? You can pre-program the tasks and they'll execute from the triggers coming out of an AI system when analytics are run. So you can see that there's kind of a continuity of effort here, is that it's going to accelerate the ability of organizations to transform how they operate and how they serve their customers. So really, just get back into the definition. If you look at the slide, I won't read from it because everyone here, I'm pretty sure, can read for themselves. It's a really simple set of rule-based automation. The thing is, you can dynamically add to the process, continuously improving it, adding more complexity, as I said before, adding other services to enhance or create net new processes. If you can have the ability of integrating seamlessly between legacy applications and target state future applications and data structures, it makes it much easier for the employee experience. There's less retraining on how to navigate a new interface with a new application, because all they have to understand is how to interact with a digital worker who in the next workday might have enhanced capabilities. They're just going to have a more rich experience with that digital worker. The same effect, if you wrap a legacy application with a digital worker, you can have those functions exposed, and then the digital worker will know when those functions are available on a new emerging platform, and it can now perform that same function for the human coworker without the human coworker having to go back and learn any differences in the system. And eventually the legacy system, when it's not called upon anymore, can be gracefully retired. So having this abstraction of a digital workforce between certain key systems and your workforce can make the work experience for your employees that much easier and allow them to do much more high value work. If you start looking at, as I said before, the integration with AI services, you'll not only be able to do the ingest and the output more efficiently, you can transform certain functions. You can now accomplish things that you couldn't do before, such as running AI services concurrently. One thing that customers are always craving is more innovation, more immediacy, deeper value in each transaction they conduct. A digital worker can actually engage AI services concurrently. So it can do deeper analysis. It can give you more opportunities to present information or options to your clients. And based on those decision trees, the information is never really lost. In our process, we can make sure that anything that you train a digital worker to do, everything that it carries out or attempts to carry out, carry out is captured in an immutable log. So the logic behind this is very persistent. It's very friendly to risk and compliance. And I think that's one thing that we have to realize now with especially COVID-19, as Robin said, the major changes that enterprises are going through right now. You need kind of a process or a workflow safety net to make sure that critical information is always accounted for, that there's a last mile of safety before you take information out of an AI service that might expose or compromise PII, or that you might want to make sure that a corporate policy is reinforced, that you're not violating your own ethics or your own compliance standards. Because a digital worker, once it's trained to carry out those functions, will never deviate from them. Now, again, I don't want people to think that I'm talking about a digital worker in place of a human worker. It's actually a different paradigm completely. We see digital workers supplementing human workers, giving them the ability of doing more innovative skills and tasks that they're better capable of performing than an AI service or an automated system. We want people to be able to do the things that make them special. An interesting thing is if you look at some information from Ernst & Young and Robert Half, when they're looking at the future of a finance and accounting capability across enterprises in the coming years, they're looking at the softer skills. They're focusing much more on the ability of doing analysis, of interpreting reports, of presenting material, of digesting market information. What's interesting is, where are the CPA skills? And what's going to happen in the near future, it's actually started to happen, is it's very easy to train digital workers in this example to carry out the very technical functions of understanding each year's updated tax law and going through and populating the appropriate forms when necessary. So humans will pivot away from the complex, mundane, error-prone tasks that they've been doing since before IT, and now it'll liberate them to focus much more on the higher value customer experience, the higher value of not simply upselling when appropriate, but also garnering a deeper customer satisfaction experience. So I think if you follow through on this example, you can start seeing that we're going to hit a point where digital workers will be entering the collaboration space in a new way. They're going to transform how people can interact. And especially now with so much remote work, and as Robin pointed out about the changes in collaboration, digital workers will be integral to that. They will be the note takers. They will be the schedulers. They will be the voice of reason, providing background analysis and summary information to carry out collaboration. They will do natural language processing to allow people from different countries who speak different languages to collaborate in real time by leveraging the AI services when appropriate. They'll be able to do the research on the primary documents to make sure that they meet due diligence. So that mundane but important critical legal task is always carried out. So I think you're going to see this major shift in where people will be less consumed with the latest app and more concerned with how to work with their customers, trusting increasingly a digital worker to take up the slack and all of the administrative functions of those interactions. So when you start looking at this emerging area of information and communications technology, more and more the definitions are around intelligent automation and how they can engage, as I said before, cognitive services and other AI services, also how they can work omni-channel. You can train a digital worker to work with the appropriate channel for the generation that they're speaking to. If you look at baby boomers, they prefer having text-driven, email-centric communications. If you look at millennials, they prefer shorter summaries in a text format. Digital workers can communicate across all of these channels concurrently. So it's a matter of how they're trained and deployed. I think that we're just at the beginning of understanding this transformation. To put it in another view, if you want to look at the workplace, all of the legacy screens I mentioned earlier, all of the emerging technologies that are differentiator that FinTech is bringing to market, it's too much for any one person to successfully, consistently leverage. There's nothing quite as old as yesterday's app, to paraphrase an old term. A digital worker can keep track of what you have, and it can easily be trained to adopt and integrate the latest and greatest offerings that come to market. They can also integrate, as I said, those cognitive services in tandem with people. That allows people to not fall behind in the marketplace with the functions that are emerging as customer valued. And as I said before, a digital worker will be that more than safety net, but it'll be that companion to give the training to and the guidance to new hires. So if you're looking at people in financial services who would normally take a ramp up time of several months or even a few years to become proficient in their role, you can take a lot of that time away by taking the smaller but time consuming tasks that those people would have to learn and relegating those to a digital worker. All that human's going to have to understand is how to interact with that digital worker, how to request the information or understand what's happening in the background so that they can continue on again with their higher value work. If you want to talk about humanizing the digital experience, this goes now not just to the employee, but to the customer. How do you reach this hyperconnectivity state, always on, knowing that if you're having a customer that's in a different time zone on a different continent, that you're going to have the desired experience and outcome that they expected from an interaction? You're going to be able to have a confidence in that because you're being empowered by your digital workers. They're making sure that all that information's represented, captured, maintained, archived efficiently, reported, so that people can focus much more on the assurance of, I would say, innovation is acceptable. People can take more risks because below them, the plumbing is sound and it's being maintained very well. I think the other thing to take away from this slide and other parts of the conversation about collaboration is measurability of customer success and employee productivity is going to transform significantly in the coming years. Because before, where you might have piecework that was part of your profile and your compensation plan, that will fall by the wayside. It really will be around original thought. It will be about relationship building. It will be about customer service. And those metrics will be always driven to a new level, because as soon as you can define something that is mundane, error prone, that's highly technical in nature, these are prime tasks to train a digital worker to take over. This will enrich the experience for employees and for customers, because when they're in a call center, you can now have a conversation where the customer service representative can be proactive instead of reactive to a call. As soon as the entity or identity of a customer is confirmed, the digital worker can, in the background, collect profile information, understand the different MDM or master data management resources that you're bringing into play to deal with that customer, ensuring that that information is prioritized, sanitized, represented, updated, all without the human worker having to log into backend systems or need even access to those backend systems, because proxying for them is a digital worker. The human can now focus on that customer sat, on the upsell, on the next challenge to meet or exceed the customer's demands. This is going to be part of a larger upskilling in a whole ecosystem. You're going to see transformations and digital transformation at the meta level of the enterprise down to this upskilling of individuals. You're also going to see it affecting compliance organizations, IT organizations, and of course, this is all going to feed into new customer expectations. We're already on this cycle, so to speak, and if we don't recognize where the market's moving and where the early adopters are taking advantage, it may not be in making everything AI capable, but it will be involving making everything dynamic and as near real time as possible, and as much in control and view of the customer as possible. So finally, the definition I want you to have about a digital workforce is it's not just these digital workers or application systems running in the background. It's not just AI services. It's a mixture of people and those AI ML services and these digital workers working together to create a digital workforce. And this approach will allow for scalability, flexibility, resiliency, and security to work across everything from the meta Internet of Things down to a personal experience of an individual customer. So I appreciate your time in looking at this approach. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'd love to have a conversation about the future of work and how it's impacting Wall Street. Thank you very much for your time today.
Great. Thanks, Eric. Fantastic presentation. And, so relevant as to how, just being able to make your employees, your digital workers more efficient, being able to offload using things like RPA, obviously, some of these functions that the technology can do much more efficiently. So you can see that we have a few questions here on the screen. Let's start with the first one. How are organizational strategies and operating models, how they changed due to COVID-19 across financial industries? Any thoughts on that?
As I said before, COVID-19 has kind of accelerated things that were already under consideration. I think you raised a very good point in your keynote about where is the investment going, and the early adopters in trying to reimagine their processes, reimagine the customer experience. Well, this is part of it, of automation.
Yeah.
I actually think that the Industrial Revolution 5.0 is on its way, and that is autonomous automation. People will be expecting things to happen 24/7, 365 on their behalf, customers and employees. You can't let your guard down on cybersecurity. And I think that you're going to see more and more of this interaction.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt right there. Yeah, I totally agree with that, for sure. And, I'm going to jump to the one on the bottom there, just in the time, just to make sure we get to that one. How is built-in redundancy and resiliency actually built into your solutions?
Well, we have a platform that's server-based. This is not screen scraping. This is not automated desktops. This is a centralized automation service. It can be put into a server farm or into a cloud service. We offer both. But what's interesting is it is a new way of dealing with business resiliency. I think the whole idea of disaster recovery is passé. It was always built around a temporal event, a blackout or a storm, as you mentioned earlier. Nobody really had a real disaster recovery plan being out of office for weeks or months. Most organizations don't have remote access rights for the majority of their employees. Now with digital workers, they can remain on-prem. Wherever your applications and data sources live, you can have digital workers running, and remotely, your employees can interact with those digital workers and be assured that they're producing required reports and information in a timely manner. So I think it'll transform some of the definitions of business resiliency.
Yeah, for sure. When you think of automation, obviously a lot of that is driven by AI, artificial intelligence. So as you're looking at, working with your customers, what would you say are some of the key metrics for success there? I know when we look at it, we look at business metrics. We look at, are you saving money? Are you making money? Or are your customers happier? Are there other things that you guys see companies focusing on when they're trying to measure success?
Well, it's kind of funny. You're talking to somebody who used to be an infrastructure architect in banking. And I do remember 20 years ago, too much emphasis was put on the cool factor, what you could do. I really have always gravitated to the business case. What is the ROI? If you can figure out the ROI of AI, adopt it. If you can figure out the ROI of intelligent automation, adopt it. And I think that's what the standard you have to hold yourself to. And there are many interesting tools that are developed to help people on these decisions. Shibumi and others help people model and then understand the milestones for recovering the ROI so they can make intelligent choices of how to automate and which AI services to implement.
Yeah, and you can see this question here for you. What is the future in the next 5 years in terms of workforce optimization? So what do you think is the impact of things like, that commercial real estate that I was talking about earlier, and how employees have to basically transform themselves?
Well, as I said, it's interesting. If you start looking at human resource capital management software, Fathom and others, they really are focusing on the skill sets people need to develop. That upskilling, as I said, it's already happening. So if people are wondering what they're going to do in 5 years, interestingly, it's the stuff that your parents didn't want you to study in college. My background is I'm a history major. Because you need the softer skills. You need the ability to grasp concepts quickly, articulate well, ingest information with a lot of research and reading. And now those are the skills that will be more valuable going forward. Because once you know the
Yep.
concept, you can train a digital worker or interact with a digital worker to carry out the tasks.